Good morning and welcome to the petty video. This video is going to talk about different ways that I was petty through the years. A lot of these would have been in instances where he was trying to kiss my ass and suck me back in after I reached the point of being fed up, or I would catch him in something that he was doing wrong. I know yesterday I talked about his Match.com profile and how I just left everything he said and then put my own tidbit in the end of his profile. That was one of those ways that it was like, fuck you, dude. Around that same time, before he tried to kill me, is when he was talking to Michelle. And I looked her up on Facebook. Holiday, but it's not spelled like holiday. Anyway, he was talking to her on this, it was either Ovio or Uvu, some kind of like chat, like MSN Messenger kind of thing, only dark themed, I guess. But anyways, that they were having a lot of their conversations through there. And I looked her up, contacted her because I caught him jerking off. And her and I came up with a plan to kind of ambush him one day when he came home from work. So when he come in the door, being the computer's sitting right there at the door, and I've described the layout of the room already in a different video. I think in ways he's tried to kill me, I think is the one that I've described it in. But anyway, so he comes in the door and I told him to sit in the computer chair. Again, this was very early on in the relationship. She was already on the computer and waiting, and we had a video call set up. She wasn't on camera, but he was. And I guess at the time she was married and those two were having like fantasy conversations of dealing with their significant others in whatever ways and running off together. And at the same time, he was also working on this girl that he was working with, Angel. And I told a story about her, I think, yesterday in my behavior patterns video. So all of that stuff is going on. I blew both of those up for him. I guess I did it at the time, early on in the relationship. I did do the video call with Michelle because A, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you cheating on me? And B, I didn't know that he was as messed up as he actually is. We were going to marriage counseling and all of these things trying to fix our relationship, not do all of this other shit. I've always been under the impression, no. I grew up with this belief that when I married somebody, that was it. That was who I was stuck with. That's who was stuck with me. So no matter what, I was going to give it my all into the relationship. Being with Nick really ruined that idea for me. But when you're in survival mode because your life is threatened, you will do things that will give you small pleasures in the moment, even though you'll probably pay for them later. Around that time, I talked to his sergeant major and I told his sergeant major what happened, what my suspicions were at the time. And I don't know what happened, but it was like 3 days later, Nick got orders for a permanent change of station. And we were sent to Fort Bliss from Fort Carson. So fuck, now I have to replan. Now I have to start all over again with like finding people who I think I can trust. Now I have to like put on a good face for X amount of time longer because this wrench got thrown in my fucking plans. And I don't remember what the sergeant major's name was. I wish I did. 123rd BSB, I think, was his info that day, or that at that point in time. So whatever sergeant major it was in like 2009, 2010, no. Could have been 2010. Anyway. Nick would get mad at me when he was dealing with another woman and it wouldn't bother me. And it did early on in the relationship, and he did rope me into like the competition of I need to prove my worth, but you know, I was trying to be a good wife, trying to do the right things and, you know, live by a certain moral compass and, you know, fight for my marriage and whatnot. And he would do these things where he would rile me up, like right before we would go out in public. And at these public gatherings, he would make the most jabby comments to try and set me off in front of people. And there was more than a few occasions where I would excuse myself and go sit in the vehicle because I wouldn't want to be around him. He would make a show out of trying to embarrass me. So we're going to be a little petty today too. And I'm going to give him a spoonful of that at the end of this video. He would become predictable. And because I saw his patterns with women, you know, when Cassie came to live with us, he would accuse me of listening through the vents and shit. And I didn't want to listen through the vents. I didn't need to because I knew how he operated. I knew exactly what he was doing step by step to kind of pull Cassie in. And I tried to warn her. I really did. I tried to warn her. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. Let me tell you who he really is. And I gave her some specifics, and even though I told her some of the stories that I've already shared, to her, it was no big deal. She was perfectly okay. He had already been in her head enough that he convinced her that all of these bad things were just delusions suffered by me. I was crazy. And he would have admitted to doing the things, but he would twist them in a sense that would make them seem less bad. So I would do, because he would make these jabby comments in public and whatnot, he would get a few from me now and then. And I'll use this as a particular example. He was upstairs wandering around, and this was before I discovered him poisoning my coffee. So he was supposed to be upstairs making my coffee. And I heard footprints from the basement above me. And I could hear where they were going through the house. I also could hear Cassie coming down the stairs. They're not quiet about it. And then all of a sudden it goes quiet when the footprints meet. So when he comes downstairs and she's like wandering around now, going to the bathroom and all of that stuff, I looked at him and I was like, so how did her lips taste this morning? Oh, he got fuming, pissed off. He sharpened a knife for like 6 hours that day because he was so pissed. That was actually something else that he would do quite regularly, especially when he was angry or wanted to be especially intimidating, would be to get his knives out and his whetstone and hand sharpen his blades. He really has a thing for knives. And he would turn so that he would invade your space and turn to face you so that you could watch him sharpen them, and he would be obnoxious with it. It literally hours he would obsess over it. So I would make these jabby, petty comments every now and then. And I'm going to tell you one of my favorites. Sticky. Oh God. I'm going to tell you the Sticky story. This is going to piss him off so much. So I'm going to prelude the Sticky story by saying that Nick would do things in his sleep. It wasn't very often, but when he would do them, they would be pretty out there. So the first time I experienced this, we were laying in bed, and all of a sudden his eyes shoot wide open, and he looks at me, and I jerk, and I look at him, and then he like points to where the corner of the room meets the ceiling, and he's like, what the hell's the W for? And he's just holding his arm out, pointing, and I'm looking, and I'm like, is he seeing something in the pattern of the ceiling? What's going on? And I looked at him and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, the W right there. And I'm looking, and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, fine, be a bitch. Punch me in the fucking face. Now I'm like bleeding. My nose is bleeding. I'm trying to catch it all because his mom has brand new cream colored fucking carpet in her house. And that's where we were at that night. So I'm trying to like contain it while running to the fucking bathroom and not dripping blood everywhere. The next morning, he told me he had no fucking recollection of any of that happening. And different things occurred through the years where he would be, I guess, sleepwalking. I remember another night he was like moving his hands across the bed, and I was like, what are you doing? And he said, racing lobsters. Yeah, are you winning? Uh-huh. Does that mean you're losing too? Uh-uh. Who are you racing lobsters against? Myself. Okay. And we had a full-blown conversation. No recollection of it the next morning. So he might legitimately have, some sleep issues. But now we're going to get to Sticky. Because I wasn't, after the Michelle, after the Angel, and we got shipped to Fort Bliss, I did not want to go to bed with him. I did not. I didn't want to sleep next to him. I didn't want to be around him because I was afraid that he knew that I was trying to leave. I had this, he was saying things in such a way that told me his sergeant major had said something to him before we left. He never told me for sure if he found out, but I could feel it. So I didn't want to go to bed next to him. And my favorite snack at night around that period of time was the strawberry shortcake rolls. They're one of my favorite fucking treats. And every night before bed, I would allow myself one sweet treat. And that's usually what I would go for if we had them. And he was angry at me because I wouldn't go to bed with him. And he thought by taking my box of strawberry shortcake rolls to bed with him, he could lure me in there. And I knew all he wanted was sex. I didn't want it. And I thought, okay, you can take them. I'll stay out here in the living room, because at that point in time, the living room was my space. There was no weird extra space for me to be at that point in time. We were in an apartment. So the living room was my space in that particular scenario. And I slept on the couch. So anyways, I thought to myself, fuck it. He can take this box of strawberry shortcake rolls to bed with him. I'll wait till he falls asleep, and then I'll go get them. They'll probably be on his nightstand next to the bed. So a couple hours go by, and I'm pretty sure he's asleep. So I creep over to the door, the bedroom door, and he's got it closed. And normally he sleeps with it cracked so he can hear. But I think he slept with it closed to kind of wake him up if I came in. Only that's not what happened. I get close to the door, and all of a sudden, I start hearing these weird sounds, and it's wrappers crinkling, and I hear him mumbling stuff, but I'm not quite sure what he's saying. So I quietly twist the doorknob, and I kind of open the door. I cracked it, and I'm listening, and he sounds like he's having a very intimate conversation with somebody. And I hear more rustling. And at this point, I go in, and I'm looking at him, and he is going to town on my snack cakes. He's very much enjoying my strawberry shortcake rolls. And I don't mean he's eating them. He is meticulously opening these wrappers at the end, and giving them a little bit of his cream filling. And apparently each one is a different woman. Because as I'm standing there, I watched him do this 3 times. And he had already gone through a few of them before I got in there. I didn't quite know what to say. So the next morning, I'm doing laundry. And I didn't sleep that night because I was just, how the fuck do you deal with this? He actually took my box into the bed with him. Like, he told me he went to sleep cuddling the box because he knew I was going to come in there and try to get them, and he wanted to be woken up if I tried. So the next morning, I had already finished doing all the laundry except those sheets. I had decided, no, I'm not washing those sheets. He can clean up that mess. I'm on the phone with my best friend, And he must have been really tired because he actually slept in that day. I could imagine after thinking, you just had an orgy with all these different women, and come to find out you wake up in the morning and you're literally covered in sticky, and being sticky was the worst thing in the world to him. He hates being sticky. I don't know how he didn't wake up throughout the night having the sheets and everything stuck to him. And we had cream colored sheets. Have fun, like, getting the pink stuff out of the sheets, man. So I'm on the phone with my best friend, and I'm telling her this story. We're both having coffee. I'm sitting outside on the balcony. And he comes outside with one of the sheets, the top sheet, wrapped around him, and he's butt-ass naked underneath of it. And it's stuck to his back and his hip and his leg, and he gives me this look like, if looks could kill, I'd have been dead that day. And I busted up fucking laughing. Just the sight of him, he's got strawberry shortcake roll on his face, up here on his forehead, all over his hands. Like, it's everywhere. And pieces of cake are falling out of the fucking sheet as he's standing there. And I just looked at him and I said, that is your mess. You can clean that up. I am not responsible for that at all. And you owe me a box of strawberry shortcake rolls. And I don't remember what he said. And I looked at him and I said, well, that's what you get for making it to home plate with a box of fatty cakes, dude. Got pissed off and walked back in the house off the balcony. And I continued my phone call with my best friend. After I got off the phone with her, I went inside and he started spouting off to me, and I said, okay, sticky. And it stuck. So sometimes in public, when he was trying to play these jabby games, I'd call him sticky. Give him just a little bit of his own. Poke him in the way he was trying to poke me. And because we're petty today, I'm going to tell you another one of his nicknames. But I'll let you figure out why. Peggy. Today we're being petty. I'm trying. We'll get there eventually.